The prison escape and rearrest of convicted murderer and rapist known by, among other names, Thabo Bester, has led to a closer examination of the prison system in South Africa. Karabo Mokgonyana, who's a legal and development practitioner, joins me now. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News this evening. Just give us a sense of the prison system in South Africa in terms of numbers, conditions, and effectiveness when it comes to punitive and restorative justice.
Good evening, Zinga, and good evening to your viewers. So, unfortunately, South Africa's, let's speak just on the population dynamics, has been increasing. Unfortunately, we have about 161,000 inmates. And it's highly been characterized with things like overcrowding, poor living conditions, sexual violence, gang violence, ill treatment, poor access to key services like medical services. So in terms of just its ability to even do what it's really meant to do, and that is to deter criminal behavior, to rehabilitate criminals when they reintegrate into society to become, key members of society, those things are not necessarily achieved in terms of our prison system.
Why do you think that is, Karabo? There's a lack of that rehabilitation that you've just spoken about in the prison system. And what do you think would be the most effective way of dealing with it?
So it's multiple things. I think just speaking on, something as simple as the environment. Our prison system already does not create a conducive environment to, implement effective rehabilitative programs. So if you have overcrowding, for one, you have 100 inmates in one cell that is meant to only accommodate 30 or 40 people, then you don't really have a conducive environment to effectively have, rehabilitation programs. But at the same time, there's not a lot of finances that are being invested into rehabilitation programs. So we don't have them. And even those that are then implemented by civil society are not necessarily sustained. So we don't really have a focus on really implementing effective programs. Prison, in my opinion, has really become a common shelter where criminals really stay in, but it's not really served. That is to really rehabilitate. So when they reintegrate into society, we can say that these are people who are law-abiding citizens. And I think the fact that they are repeat offenders is a key indication of the lack of rehabilitation.
Do you think that there's capacity and political will to implement a system which changes our prison system and ensures that people do come out as law-abiding citizens and not something that's just creating a lot of repeat offenders that you've just spoken about?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when it comes to political will, it's the most important thing, because that's where fiscal decisions are actually made from. What are we doing in terms of injecting the amount of money that is, placed within the prison system, but also what is it doing? Are we holding any sort of the staff members, accountable? Do they even know how to effectively implement these rehabilitative programs? So it's going to be so important for our political systems to actually push that, even from a policy perspective. Just speaking on the sexual violence that exists within prisons, there is a policy that was implemented in 2013, but we don't really see what that policy is doing. And that speaks to the lack of political will to actually push for effective programming at prison systems, in prisons, to ensure that there is absolutely no sexual violence, because unfortunately that pours back into society.
What's the potential of the prison reform that you've spoken about in a South African society? And let's say there was the political will, there was the fiscal implementation of the funding to allow for that to happen. How long would that take, and what does our society look like after that?
It will take a while, because it's not, rehabilitation programs are different, are multi-layered. So we would need aspects like, for example, we need to ensure that these rehabilitative programs offer things like psychosocial support, because in a society like ours, where a lot of the crimes are very much a result of the social inequalities, the traumas that exist within our societies. We do need to deal with the root causes of a lot of the reasons why a person thinks it's okay to even engage in criminal activity. But at the same time, then you have a lot of inmates, but you don't have space. So you still need to work on the facilities and ensuring that the services and all that is there is really available to all prisoners. But at the same time, then you need to have more of the economic and educational opportunities that are available. So make sure education is available, make sure that some form of vocational training or work is available, because if we're going to talk about reintegrating people into society and they're finding it very difficult to find jobs, or get access to opportunities when they come out, the tendency to return into crime is quite high. So it'll take time, it'll take multiple, stakeholders to actually be involved. But I think that process on its own then sees our society becoming better because you don't have repeat offenders. And at the end of the day, a lot of us are then the victims of the crimes that actually happen. And we then will see a reduction of that. And some of those crimes like sexual violence pouring into our society then is reduced.